just imagine what your fantasy team could look like today if you had stashed high upside players instead of waiting each new week for the waiver wire, the guy you got to bid on. Well, in today's video, I am bringing you 20 plus names that you should stash with secret upside. There is something for everyone. If you're in a smaller league or a larger league, there's a lot of names out there and guys that I think could help you regardless of what format you play. Before we get into the nitty gritty, I want to quickly mention some names that should already be rostered. All these names take priority over the names I'm about to discuss in depth, but check this out. Trey McBride, a guy that we've been telling you to stash on this exact video series. We've seen a lot of returns from the guys that we have been encouraging you guys to stash. Trey McBride pops off last week. Kyler Murray coming back. Hopefully you watched that video and you were able to stash him before he became the waiver wire hotness. Josh Downs, talked about him multiple weeks ago. Same with Rashee Rice. Jahan Dotson should be rostered with that Curtis Samuel injury. JSN, and of course, Tank Dell. So I'm going to get into those stashes. Now, what I will say is this is how the video is going to be broken down. I'm going to go quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Okay, we'll go in that order. So there will be timestamps below if you want to skip into a certain part. But let's start with quarterbacks that I want to stash if I play in a league with one quarterback starting. Okay, so let's talk about Kyler Murray first of all. This guy has been on this video series for 3 weeks in a row, so I won't go into too much depth. You can skip this if you've already heard it, or you can watch previous videos where I go into even more depth. Last week is one of those videos, but currently available in 68% of ESPN leagues. Guys, that number should be well below 40%. There's no way he should be available in almost 70% of ESPN leagues. That's just too high. That's why I got to keep telling you about him. Look at his career, okay? As a rookie, he was a quarterback 12 on a per game basis, but in 2020 and 2021, quarterback 4 on a per game basis, and in 2022, the quarterback 8. In his 4-year career, he is averaging 21 points per game. That's crazy. That is a ridiculous amount of points that is just sitting on some people's waiver wires. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at his career average, 21 points per game, and then look at what quarterbacks have done this year on a per game basis. Where would he stack up? Where would he stack up with those guys? Well, have a look at this. We've got Josh Allen, who would be first. Jalen Hurts, who is second in points per game with 23.5. Herbert, who is third, with 22 points per game. And in fourth, right now, if you look at his career average, Kyler Murray would be there in fourth with 21 points per game. His career average is currently higher than what Pat Mahomes is giving you this year, Lamar Jackson, and Tua. So stash this guy. If you get an elite quarterback, it can make worlds of difference for you in the playoffs. This guy can be the reason you win a championship for real. And some people might be like, oh my God, you're still talking about Kyler? He is still available. I got to keep mentioning him at minimum. All right, the second quarterback that I'm considering stashing in a one quarterback league, that is Will Levis, available in 99% of ESPN leagues and 90% of sleeper leagues. What a debut for Will Levis, the second round pick from the Tennessee Titans. 4 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a huge win versus the Falcons. I definitely didn't expect him to play that well. Oddly enough, Levis is actually the quarterback 1 on a per game basis right now. You know what I just showed you with Kyler Murray? Right now, Levis in his first game, it's only 1 game, but that game he had more points per game than anyone is averaging. Now, it's not sustainable. I'm not sitting here and telling you he's going to be the quarterback 1 on a per game basis. I don't expect him to be that good, typically, okay? The reality is we're looking at a stash here. We want to try and beat the waiver wire, beat the breakout, which happened last week. I picked him up in some Superflex leagues, but he may be awful tomorrow night versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is a very realistic possibility. But this is specifically for those people out there who lost Kirk Cousins, who lost Matthew Stafford, who are struggling to find a quarterback that they can rely on. There is no risk in you going out and picking up Will Levis and seeing how he performs on Thursday Night Football. And the best thing about that is if you're in a league like I am, where you can drop players who you're not starting, is you can pick up Will Levis, leave him on your bench, don't start him this week, and if he plays well again 2 games in a row, you may have found your potential replacement at quarterback. And if he bombs and he's awful, you can drop him and have a free bench space heading into the weekend. All right. Before we get into running backs, I want to quickly mention 2 names. If you are in a super flex league specifically a super flex league. So if you don't play super flex, completely ignore this. Use the timestamps and jump to the running back section. But in super flex leagues, stash these two names if you need help at quarterback. Firstly, Aiden O'Connell, available in 100% of ESPN leagues and 98% of sleeper leagues. This has everything to do with how bad Jimmy G has been. This team is not winning games. Jimmy G just came back from that injury, and he completed less than 50% of his passes, only 126 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. You could see how frustrated Davante Adams was on the sideline. There's a chance that Jimmy G is replaced by Aiden O'Connell. That is a realistic chance, with a rookie just sitting there waiting to get some more exposure. And if he becomes a starter, who knows what could happen? We know in Superflex leagues that if you get a starting quarterback, there is value and there is wiggle room in the trade market now for you. The second guy is Jaren Hall, available on 100% of platforms everywhere. Jaren Hall is going to get his first start versus the Falcons this Sunday, and it's very likely that he plays at a mediocre level. It's very likely that he is not good as an NFL quarterback, and he ends up being replaced by Josh Dobbs. That is the 99% chance outcome, okay? However, again, in a deep super flex league, you should stash this guy. What if he goes out and he does absolutely ball out with Jordan Addison, with TJ Hawkins? What if he plays so well, he plays himself into that starting lineup, and then you got a free starter on your team? So stash that guy in super flex leagues. All right, let's move on to the running backs. I have, I believe, 8 running backs to talk to you guys about, and I'm going in order from my preference of, stash the most I want to stash to the least I want to stash, if that makes sense. Number 1 is Chuba Hubbard. I assume he's already rostered in most formats, but I have to at least mention his name. He's available in 57% of ESPN leagues, so almost 60% of ESPN and Yahoo. So if he's out there, he should be rostered. And even in 8-man leagues, this guy should be rostered. We encouraged you on this video series to stash Chuba about a month ago. And at that time, he was available in 82% of leagues. So that definitely paid off for people who listened then. Hopefully you were able to watch that video. Regardless, if he is somehow available now, you need to pick him up. He's completely taken over that backfield in Carolina. Last week, he had 45 snaps compared to Miles Sanders' 12. He ran 21 routes compared to Miles Sanders' 10. He had 2 targets, and he had 15 carries. Miles Sanders with just 2 carries. He's completely taken over the backfield. He's got to be rostered in every single format. That number needs to be up in the 80% rostered category. So the second guy is Zach Charbonnet, a guy we've talked about before as well, available in 70% of ESPN leagues and over 50% of sleeper leagues. Last week, he played a career high in snap percentage with 59% of the snaps. His previous career high was week 3, where he played 43%. In both games, we finally saw some really exciting flashes from this second round pick, and his efficiency was super high on a low amount of touches. Last week versus the Cleveland Browns, 5 carries for 53 yards, over 10 yards per carry. He had some juice. Again, I don't wish an injury on Ken Walker, but if an injury were to happen, I still to this day am saying Zach Charbonnet is the best handcuff in all of fantasy football. He instantly becomes a top 15 running back in fantasy if anything were to happen to Ken Walker. Okay, at number 3 at the running back spot, Tyjae Spears. He's available in 36% of ESPN leagues and 44% of sleeper leagues. In fact, he's actually rostered in 36%. So quick maths, that would tell us he's available in about 64% of ESPN leagues. That's my bad. But Tyjae's been great this year. He's been great. If he's out there, definitely considering stashing him. In any 12-man league, I think he's already stashed. But I gotta have a wide range of outcomes for all you guys in 8, 10, 12, 14, 16-man leagues. But Tyjae Spears in 2023 has been great. Maybe consider this a buy low target as well. He's 3rd in yards per carry. He's 2nd explosive run rate. That is percentage of his runs that went for more than 15 yards. He's 2nd in missed tackles forced per attempt. And he is 4th in yards after contact per attempt. That is minimum of 30 attempts for running backs. He's been great. This offense is rolling, and he could potentially be a huge part of that and have standalone value. We have seen that. Okay, the 4th running back is Tyler Algier. Now, I expect Tyler Algier to be rostered in most formats, but I can't not mention him. I mean, we saw what Tyler Algier could do with a full workload back in week 7 when Bijan Robinson dealt with that head injury. In that game, he had 21 carries and 3 targets, almost 15 PPR points. If Bijan were to miss time, you could start Tyler Algier on a weekly basis in that offense. At number 5, again, we're going from probably less available down to more and more available. So depending on your league size here, there is something for everyone. At number 5, Rashawn Johnson, available in 54% of ESPN leagues and 42% of sleeper leagues. We already saw Rashawn Johnson take the majority of the snaps in this backfield last week, his first game back from that concussion. He led the backfield last week, again, first game back, with 24 snaps compared to 21 for D'Onta Foreman, 13 routes run, 4 targets, and 5 carries. D'Onta Foreman getting 9 versus 5. This staff draft Rashawn Johnson with a day 2 pick on purpose. They have plans for him. They want to see him out there dominating. They believe in Rashawn Johnson, who we call Roscoe. You might hear us call him Roscoe. I would not be surprised if Roscoe in Chicago turns into what we saw with Chuba Hubbard in Carolina over time. We just might not have seen that full transition just yet. All right, the 6th running back I wanted to tell you to stash, we've talked about him before, but that is Devin Singletary, available in a high percentage of leagues. Most people watching this, Devin Singletary is probably out there. He becomes the first name on this list that is probably widely available. I don't think he should be, though. Available in 67% of ESPN leagues and 74% of sleeper leagues. Second game in a row now that Devin Singletary has been eating into Dameon Pierce's opportunities. And it's his second game in a row that he has outscored Dameon Pierce in fantasy football. Last week, Devin ran more routes. Devin had more targets. Dameon didn't even have one, and matched Dameon in total touches. Devin also handled all the short yardage work, more third down work than Dameon, and is eating into the early down role that Dameon had locked down last year. This offense could slowly but surely be moving towards Devin Singletary. And I know a lot of people keep defending Dameon Pierce, but I don't know, dude. I've not been a Dameon guy, so maybe I'm just a hater, but I don't think it's just the offensive line. I just don't think he is what people thought he was, unfortunately. All right, the 7th player that I would encourage you to stash at running back is Tank Bigsby. I'm a huge Etienne guy, have him in a lot of leagues. I hope we never have to talk about Tank Bigsby on a waiver wire video. I hope and I pray that day never comes. However, we have seen how important the running back position is to this team, to this offense. If anything were to happen, this is kind of like what I see in Zach Charbonnet. Talented player in an offense where the running back position means a lot, so it's worth stashing in deeper formats. And the 8th guy is Amari DiMercado. I wouldn't really consider this a stash. I consider it a spot start. If you need a guy to spot start this week, you're in a tough position, you could start him. There are worse options in deeper formats, but when Connor is back, James Conner that is, it's his backfield. We have to recognize that. All right, the last position we're going to talk about today is wide receivers, and I've talked about a lot of tight ends in the previous weeks, so you can go check those out. But wide receivers, let's talk about that. First name that you should be stashing, because we could see a trend starting to develop here potentially. First round pick Quentin Johnston, available in over 65% of platforms everywhere. The Chargers' first round pick is starting to get more and more involved, and he is finding his groove in this offense. He's coming off a career high game in snap percentage with 70% of the snaps played, in targets with 6, and receptions with 5, and receiving yards with 50. His first game with 10 PPR points. And I know last week versus Chicago, Josh Palmer was dealing with an injury. However, Palmer still played almost 70% of the snaps himself. But most important thing I want to talk about here with Quentin Johnston is about how they are using him. Last week was the first game where I thought to myself, that is how you use Quentin Johnston. For the first 7 weeks, it was go balls. It was jump ball opportunities. That is not his strengths. I know he's a big wide receiver. I know he's tall, but that's not where his strengths lie. His strengths lie in after the catch, his yak ability, and finally they were getting him involved over the middle of the field. Maybe that continues. You could have a real special player on your hand if that is the case. All right, the second wide receiver you should stash, if he's out there, is Demario Pop Douglas. Those of you who have been with me on this video series know I've been talking about this guy quite a lot, but this is another guy that I have a lot of stock of in my dynasty formats, and another guy that I've been talking about probably too much on this channel, but I want to make sure his name is out there. And I know there are some people who are skeptical about Pop Douglas and this offense, and I get it, I understand, but I will stand by what I've been saying this entire time, which is Pop Douglas is the most explosive, the most dynamic player in this Patriots offense. There is not a more explosive player on that team. And now Kendrick Bourne is out for the year. That's going to open up opportunities for Pop Douglas. I mean, even last week, he led the team in snaps, in routes run, in targets, and he got a carry on the ground. They like to use him in that end around fashion. But this is definitely a player that I would be rostering. Now, if you're in an 8 or 10 man, maybe it's not worth it. But in a 12 man, to find a potential flex, absolutely. Talented player, didn't go to a big school, but the juice is there. All right, the third wide receiver that you should be stashing, Michael Wilson. This is a multi-week stash on Michael Wilson for deeper leagues. We've already seen him pop off before. Remember, he went for 25 plus PPR points versus the Niners earlier this year. And now he's about to get a huge quarterback upgrade in Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has only been in pass-happy offenses thus far in his career. What will that offense look like when he comes back? We'll have to see. Maybe he's just an upgrade in what they already have, but we have seen Kyler Murray elevate multiple wide receivers before, and Michael Wilson is very, very talented. All right, the fourth wide receiver that you should stash, another guy that I really love. That's a trend on this video, isn't it? Jonathan Mingo. I don't know if you guys are seeing that fly. It just flew all the way around my head. Jonathan Mingo continues to get a high percentage of snaps, a high percentage of targets, opportunities, and with a change in play calling over in Carolina, there's a chance that this second round rookie pick gets more and more written into the game plan rather than it just being only Adam Thielen seeing targets. The fifth guy that you should stash, and these last two, I will admit, are for very, very deep leagues, but hang around because I have a tight end stash to end this video, and it's definitely worth listening to. But the fifth name at the wide receiver spot is Khalil Shakir. To me, this last week that we saw from Shakir, we call him Shakira. Oh, baby, when you talk like that. It's very likely that what we saw last week was just a flash in the pan. That is the most likely scenario here. But he had a great game, and if his role grows in a pass-happy offense, there's no reason for you not to consider keeping him on your radar at minimum. The sixth name here at the wide receiver spot is Donovan Peoples-Jones. And for me, it's just, I'm curious as to what Detroit's plans are for Donovan Peoples-Jones. If you're in like a 16-man or an 18, 20, 32-man league, some of you guys, Donovan Peoples-Jones, should be someone that you could consider stashing, because what if they intend to give him the Josh Reynolds role? That could be something that's intriguing in such a very good offense. And to end the video, guys, I'm going to bring you a tight end that you should be considering stashing. That is Chig Okonkwo. Chig Okonkwo, a guy that we really loved last year. We had high expectations coming into 2023. He's been virtually dead with Ryan Tannehill, but Will Levis kind of reignited his fantasy status, if you will, last week. Now, if he plays another good game, people will start to consider him on the waiver wires. If you have a free spot and you're looking for the next tight end breakout, maybe that is Chig Okonkwo. If Will Levis is real, then Chig Okonkwo will be something. He really will. If Will Levis is actually not good and it was just a one-game wonder, then Chig will be a dead asset. There's no in between. But if you're willing to take a chance on Will, you should be willing to take a chance on Chig Okonkwo as well. But that is it for today's video, guys. Do me a huge favor. Go ahead and smash that like button. It is a very simple way for you to help this channel grow. And if you want to support what we do over here, if you want to support myself, my co-host Badaki, if you want to help us, kind of try and find and reach our goals, if you will, then go ahead and use our promo code LAND and head over to the Flock Fantasy website. Sign up with our promo code LAND. You can check it out. If you decide that you want to support us, you'll get 30% off when you use that promo code. But there is so much to offer over on that website. We have a new feature with community rankings, over 10,000 data points where you can see the most updated thoughts from the entire community. You have expert rankings over there. You've got dynasty rankings. You've got articles from myself, from all the best people in the industry. It's a great way to get ahead of your league mates. You also have my weekly rankings that I do over there. And last but not least, if you want a personalized DM to us for advice, if you choose that top tier, which we call the Mother Flocker tier, you will unlock a personalized DM to ask us anything that your heart desires. But that is it for today, guys. We appreciate y'all. Man, I really feel like this, you guys let me know in the comments, but I really feel like this has been the most helpful video I've been able to bring you guys this year. Not this one specifically, but this video series, the stash video series. We've helped so many people stash incredibly high upside players that they are now starting on a weekly basis. And I'm really proud to say that we've been able to do that and probably help people probably win some championships. A lot of probablys in there, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Go ahead, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.